Okay, in this video or in this lesson, we're going to look at the midpoint of a function. So if we look at this little graphic here, we've got the point A and the point B, and C is in the midpoint. It's the midpoint. Now, this is a nice, easy one because the y coordinate for A and B is both 4. The x coordinate of the A is 1, and the x coordinate of the B is 6. So really the midpoint is right between this 1 and the 6. So what number is right between 1 and 6? 3.5. How did we get that? 1 plus 6 is 7, and then you divide by 2. So if we move this out to 9, okay, so A is the 0.14, B is the 0.994. So what is right in between the 1 and the 9, the midpoint of the 1 and the 9? Well, 1 plus 9 is 10, divided by 2 is 5. So that's how we find the midpoint. We're just averaging the x's out. We can move this to the 5. So now we've got the A is 5, 4, and the B is 9, 4. So 5 across, 4 up, and 9 across, and 4 up. So what number is right in between the 5 and the 9? 7. Now, you might see that straight away, or you might have to go 9 plus 5 is 14 and then divide it by 2. Exactly the same thing happens if we're looking at the y value. Okay, so now I've made the x values the same. The y values are 5 and 1. What's right in between 5 and 1? 3. So the midpoint is 5, 3. If it goes to a negative number, that's exactly the same. It's a lot more difficult, perhaps. But again, we're looking at the x values. It's going from -3 right up to 5. How do we know that 1 is the midpoint? We add these two x values together. 5 plus -3 is 2. 5 plus -3 is 2. And then we've got to divide by 2 because we're adding the two numbers together and dividing by 2. So we're really finding the average or the mean of those two numbers. If both of the numbers are negative, it's exactly the same. Here you've got both these numbers negative, and I'll make that one -4. What is the number right in between -4 and -1? It's -2.5. You can see that. How might we do that? We add them together. -1 plus -4 is -5. And then divide by 2 to get -2.5. Now, I wonder what happens. We'll get rid of that for a while. But I wonder what happens if we're on a diagonal like this. Now, the midpoint, you might think, well, it'd be about there. And again, that's just the middle of the x's is going to be about here somewhere. And the middle of the y's is going from there to there. So the middle of the y's. And that's all we do. So we, instead of doing it once, like when it's in this situation, and we only do it for the x values, if it's at a diagonal like this, and we'll start with both of them being positive, so it's nice and easy. Let's click that onto a nice number. There you go. Okay, so A is the 0.12 and B is the 0.76. So if we just look at the x values, it's going from 1 to 7. What's right in between 1 and 7? We'll add them together and divide by 2, and you get 4. And the y values are going from 2 to 6. What's right in between 2 and 6? Add them together. 2 plus 6 is 8 and divided by 4. So over here, if you look at the way they've set it up, 1 plus 7 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. 2 plus 6 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. And there's that midpoint. And once we've clicked it on, it's probably a bit easier to see. We can move it around a bit just to make it a nice or a bit more difficult, perhaps. There you go. So again, what's right in between? It goes from 1 to 8. 1 plus 8 is 9, divided by 2 is 4.5. 2 plus 4 is 6, divided by 2 is 3. And it's going up here, it's going from 2 to 4. So halfway is 3. Here it's going from 1 to 8. halfway is 4.5. So really, we're just adding the x's together and dividing by 2, adding the y's together and dividing by 2. And it doesn't matter if one of them is a negative number, like this, and let's make it so they're not the same. There you go. So what are we doing here? We're adding the 8 and the minus 2 to give 6, dividing by 2, 3. Adding the 4 and the 1 to give 5, dividing by 2. So really what we're doing, we're adding the x values, dividing by 2. Adding the y values, dividing by 2. And you can see that if we were to put a little triangle in here, we're looking at right in the middle of the y's, right in the middle of the x's. Hopefully that makes some sense to you. It doesn't matter. I will, let's enlarge it a bit. Don't you hate that? Let's look at a trickier one where we've got lots of negatives happening. We're going from here. The point A is -3, -2, and B is 5, -3. So in terms of the x's, we're going from -3 right across to 5. Okay, so that is going to be -3 right across to 5. The midpoint is going to be 1. How do we get this? We add these two things together. 5 plus -3 is 2. Divide by 2. Add the x's, divide by 2. Exactly the same with the y's. We're going from -2 to -3. What's right in the middle? -2.5. So we add them together. -2 and plus -3 is -5. Divide by 2. And that's how we get the midpoint. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter how hard it is. We add the x's together, divide by 2. Add the y's together, divide by 2. Hopefully that's explained the midpoint a bit for you, and you can go on to do some questions. Thanks.